Hey folks, Amy here. Welcome back to the Business of Yoga series. Delighted to introduce you to my guest of the moment, Kamini Desai. Welcome, lovely. Thank you so much for being part of our series.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm going to read out your bio so that people get a better sense of who you are if I don't have the good fortune to know you well yet. Kamini Desai is PhD and is the Education Director of the Amrit Yoga Institute over the past 25 years. She's Kamini, the author of Yoga Nidra, The Art of Transformational Sleep, has created an exciting and unique body of teachings incorporating Western psychology and Eastern philosophy. Considered an expert in the science of Yoga Nidra, yoga therapy, relaxation, and artful living, what a beautiful phrase, her practical and accessible teaching styles have been welcomed throughout the United States and worldwide. And she's coming to my city, which I'm so excited about. So welcome, and I'm delighted to be speaking with you today because I know that one of the things you're keen to share with us is about the importance of relationships and building relationships in what it means to be a yoga business owner. I'm wondering, before we jump into that really juicy topic, tell us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about your history with yoga, because it's, I suspect, somewhat different from what some of our other guests are sharing. How did you come to yoga? How did yoga find you?
Yes, well, I was born into yoga, but of course, as a teenager, I was convinced that I did not want to have anything to do with yoga and was going to do my own thing. And of course, that's what teenagers do. And then in my 20s, I was going to be studying international relations. I was in Geneva, Switzerland, and found myself getting depressed and having anxiety. And that's really when I kind of went full circle.
Wow.
And picked up all the teachings that I had learned as a child, and realized that, of course, outer peace is great, but it actually begins with inner peace. So I moved from diplomacy, or external diplomacy, let's say, to creating peace inside.
Internal diplomacy. I love it.
Yes. Yeah.
And so what comprises your business now, currently? What are the elements that make up your yoga business?
Yeah, so I would really encompass it all in terms of I'm here to teach people or to share with people life mastery. So we all learn how to balance our checkbooks, but we don't necessarily know how to live better. Yeah. And, nobody teaches us how to deal with our mind, our emotions, our stress, our worry, all these kinds of things. And so the primary thing that I teach is actually called Yoga Nidra, which you mentioned it, sleep-based meditation. And one of the easiest and most powerful ways to help somebody quiet their mind, see what's beyond their mind in a way that anybody can access, whether they can do a yoga pose or not.
I was talking with Rod Stryker earlier about my fetish for Yoga Nidra because I started yoga as a stressed out 8-year-old child. And one of the most vivid memories I have is when you got the big orange blankets at the end and got to make a little snuggling nest and just gone, all of the beautiful imagery. And it's one of the sweetest memories I have of that time is Yoga Nidra. And yet in most classes, you get a 10-minute, if you're lucky, Shavasana, or the teacher leaves and says, stay if you've got 5 minutes, but there's none of this practice, let alone how we can use it outside the yoga room. So I'm excited about this work and talking more about Yoga Nidra.
Absolutely.
Could you hold up your book for us so that we can just, we're going to be talking about it, but I want everyone to see what it looks like. So, because I see everyone, and you can click, we've hooked the button up here, folks. So if you want to go get one right now, go get it. Because one of the things that also people ask for resources for Yoga Nidra, and I've got a favorite, which is the Shivananda scripts book, which I love, but I'm excited that there are more books coming out, more support, more training, so that we can start to incorporate this as teachers into what we offer. But I'm presuming that it's not just about having Yoga Nidra as the tail end of a yoga class, that it's I was going to say a skill, I guess it's a skill, a technique that you can use at other times as well.
Yeah, it's a technique's all on its own, and you know, you and I were talking before we started this, and that it's really been largely underrated. You know,
Yeah.
and most people think of, oh yeah, nidra, that's just like a spiritual name for a nap. But in
Yeah.
actual fact, it really is a very powerful meditation technique
Yeah.
that often takes people deeper than traditional seated meditation. And again, you know, a lot of people, you know, their knees hurt, their back hurts, they're
Mm,
looking at the watch rather than watching their thoughts with
mm,
seated meditation.
mm.
But yoga nidra, the process itself takes them to the space beyond the mind, which I love so much.
Me too. It feels it's very supported, and for people who think that they can't meditate, it's a beautiful gateway, I imagine.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something else is this whole, you know, we're all addicted to doing, you know, even when
Mm,
we rest, we're resting so that we can get up and do more. And you know,
So
at the end of the
true.
class, we're, you know, it's like, oh, hurry up and get in a shavasana. Let me hurry up and relax. And you know, it really starts to play on our nervous system.
Yeah. Um, I've got to, can I ask you a
It's a
tech?
good way to take care of ourselves.
I interrupted you then. Yes. Um, I've got a techie question for you about yoga
Hmm.
nidra. I was at there's an ashram near me, and I was there last weekend for yoga nidra and lunch. And the guy next to me he's lying down for about a first minute, and then he was out and like snoring really loudly. What do you think about the waking people up, like the toe picking the toe, or just talking louder? What do you say about waking people up in yoga nidra?
Yeah. Well, it's always a thing, but you know, if you're in a room and it's disturbing to other people, it's always nice as a facilitator to try to let them know you're snoring, you know, and set it up ahead of time. You know, if you're snoring, I'll squeeze your toe. But the interesting thing about yoga nidra is in the scriptures, it's described as being deeper than sleep. And
Oh,
it's really interesting because sometimes somebody will come up to me and say, why did you squeeze my toe? I was awake. I heard everything you said, and yet they were snoring away.
huh.
So they were completely conscious and yet truly deeply asleep at the same
Huh.
time, to the degree they didn't even know that they were snoring.
That's interesting to me. I wouldn't have considered that. So, yeah, wow.
Yeah. No, you can be so gone. I mean, sometimes I've had it, you know, where I'm like, you know, that little bit of in the back of your throat, and I'm thinking, who is that? And then I go, oh my God, that's me.
Yep, okay, that happened to me as well.
Yeah.
But it's so curious because I remember once, actually, this was in Anna Forest, and someone came around and did the thing to my toe, and I thought, hang on a second, I wasn't asleep. So maybe that I probably
Yeah.
needed a snuffle, but how interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a fascinating practice. It really is.
really. And the way that it's guided, or maybe for people who don't, maybe people who are watching that have a tradition that's never done anything about yoga nidra, no idea what we're even talking about. Could you give us the quick summary of what it is?
Sure. So yoga nidra is a meditation technique. It's done lying down, and it basically follows the brain waves down into sleep. The only thing is that you don't fall asleep, in theory. And the idea is that just in that twilight zone between waking and sleeping, our thoughts naturally and biologically move further away from us, without us having to effort for that to happen. And we can enter that space, that gap between us and our thoughts, really effortlessly and easily.
Mm,
And really, the hardest thing you have to do is not fall asleep.
fall asleep.
But even if you do get a lot of the benefits. So it's a very powerful practice, really accessible for everybody.
Yeah, it takes a level of confidence to teach it, though. I think I know when I've done it a couple of times when I've attempted, and I just feel quite nervous that I'm going to get it wrong, or like that I don't know. Maybe that's because I love it so much, but it's not just.
Yeah,
It's more involved than just. I've been in classes where the teacher gets out the iPhone and is just reading the thing off the iPhone.
yeah.
There's a level of there's a level of mastery
It's an
required.
art.
It's a skill. Yes, an art.
There
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a whole philosophy, there's a whole science and a technique behind it that really allows you to do more than just read it, but actually deliver
Mm.
energetically, that helps
Mm.
people go into these very deep states and really heal
Mm.
in very deep ways. So there is an art to it. And that's why I love doing trainings with it, because it is so powerful and teaching people really the depth of what it's about.
Yes. Okay. I'm excited. But and so I know you're coming to Melbourne to teach that,
Yes,
but I think that
yes,
that's
yes.
part of you. It's not just Melbourne. You travel to other places to share this wisdom as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I teach all over the world, and people need it. People need deep, deep rejuvenating rest because, like I said, we're all addicted to doing. We're all relaxing quickly so that we can do. Happy to be coming to Melbourne.
Yeah. Great. I'm excited. All right. Writing is a part of your business. Trainings are a part of your business. What are the other elements the components that make up what it is that you do?
That's the main thing I do. I mainly travel and teach weekends, train immersions and trainings.
Mm-hmm.
I also train other teachers to become trainers themselves. So I do train the
Oh,
trainer type of workshops.
that's
How do
interesting.
you put together a workshop? How do you put together a training presence?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
I think this is really interesting because and I don't know. I mean, you're in it, so you would know. But I imagine that this is a skill set that's sort of missing in yoga land. That we think
Mhm.
that, okay, I know enough about yoga. Now I'm ready to teach people to be
Yeah.
teachers of yoga, but not the skills actually in the how do you actually teach. Mm.
Exactly, exactly. And we all have so many, unknown fears that are standing between us and a powerful transmission.
Mhm.
So it's a great way to get to help people work through,
Mm.
stuff, old patterns that they don't even
Mm.
know that are holding them back while they get better at delivering and giving to other people.
Yeah, and putting together, like you said, planning workshops. So that's an art. Knowing how to
Yeah.
mapping out curriculum and how much time people can do something for, and then they need a rest, or how people learn. And yeah, wow, what a great thing to offer.
I love it. I really love it. Yeah, it's
Mm.
neat.
Mm. So let's talk then about you said when we were putting together constructing what we would talk about in this interview, that in fact what it takes to be have a abundant yoga business is recognizing and nourishing relationships. Talk to us more about
Mhm.
this. What do
Yeah.
you mean?
So, one of the things, anywhere from teaching classes all the way out to workshops or trainings, often you will be going into other people's spaces where they have built up businesses, they've built up clientele. And if you come in with an attitude of, I know better, or you need to give me this. And often, just because we want to be empowered, we expect, like, okay, well, this is what I charge and do. And I want this and I want that. And actually, that doesn't work so well. If you come in with this kind of idea of how can I help your studio flourish and offer the most that it possibly could to the community that you're reaching, that's going to be a better kind of relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not looking for what I can get out of it, but how could I contribute to what you're already doing in a way that doesn't feel like conflict or competition or taking away or demanding, you know?
Mm.
And I see this a lot because, teachers come out and they're like, well, I always undercharge. And so now I'm just going to stand up for myself and demand. And there's a place for standing up for what you feel you deserve, but also that's something that's earned over time.
Ooh, I
And
love
so,
this.
yeah, if you come in and develop a relationship with somebody and say, okay, so what can we do to help, that maybe isn't being offered here, but that will widen your reach to your community. That's
Mm.
interesting for them.
Mm.
You let them get to know you and see that you're consistent, that you deliver fantastic teachings,
Mm.
that you're not going to try to steal their business,
Mm.
you know, that you're very respectful of what they do. They're going to want you back.
Mm.
But if you kind of come in and people do it in a well-meaning way, but if you do it as like a bull in a china shop, you might come in once, but they won't call you back.
I love this. And it's funny because I think most of the people I talk to are on the end of the spectrum of, oh, I could never ask for that much. Oh, I need to take whatever I can get. And I don't speak to as many people who are on the other side of the pendulum swing, which is the bull in the china shop. This is really curious to me. But I can
Hmm.
imagine that it's common. What would you
Yeah.
say, though, for people who are at the other side that undercharge, if they haven't made that, well, I'm going to da-da-da,
Yeah.
what for them?
Well, you make a really good point, because that, they're two sides of the same coin.
Mm.
Um, and we do, what we charge is often what we think we deserve or what we think we're worth.
Yes.
And one of the things that we'll do sometimes is it's smart to offer things for free when you know you're going to be reaching an audience who might be going deeper with you. But very often we offer something for free because we think, we say, oh, it's for them, and it doesn't matter if nobody shows up or that kind of thing.
Yes.
But it causes people to undervalue us, right?
Yes.
So we're kind of saying, well, I don't think it's worth anything. So,
Why should you?
and other people don't either. Yeah. And in this day and age, if it's one of those things that money is commitment.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And it shows, if you say this is worth money, you're saying this is worth your time. And also the person who has signed up for the training, if they decide, well, I'm not going to show up, they have some skin in the game, right? They've put something in it to commit to it. And they don't say, well, it was free anyway, so I'm just not going to show up. So it creates value for the person. Actually, for the person being charged money, it creates value for them.
Yes.
And for you, it creates value in terms of you communicating, even before you say a word, what I have to offer you is something that's really meaningful and it's really going to help your life.
I imagine also that it's the beginning of a relationship too, isn't it? It's the starting of the contract of the relationship. We've had this exchange and now we're entering into this relationship. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give this for free to you, actually, to the person receiving it, like it's uneven, and that often they would rather just pay for it and have it be a clear transaction.
Yes.
Rather than feeling like they owe you something.
Yes. I talk with my clients about giving things for free, it's a beautiful thing to do, tithing, scholarships, exchanges, when it's coming from a place of fullness rather than a place of empty. Yeah. It's not about saying no to ever doing anything for free, but if it's coming from, I need to coerce people or maybe they won't like me if I have to pay, then that's when we get into the danger area.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so for people who are, maybe then to take us back onto the other side of the coin, part of your business is traveling and teaching at various different studios, like in Thornbury soon. Yes. And you mentioned that you do that with a level of sensitivity so that you foster an ongoing, or at least if it is just one-off, that it's mutually nourishing and beneficial. How do you approach people if people are just starting out thinking, I'd like to travel and I'd like to offer my workshop somewhere else? How do you start to foster those relationships?
Yeah. So the first thing is, I would start small and develop trust. So, maybe it's, would you be interested in a lecture or an evening workshop or something that's a small kind of thing where they get to know you and see who you are and what value you bring. And then over time, you can build that up. But one of the things that I found, just speaking in terms of relationships, is let's say that I'm invited to Australia.
Yep.
Okay. And if I'm invited and somebody is paying for my plane ticket to come over there, and then I book another training while I'm there right down the road from the original. In some cases, the studio owner has no problem with that. But if one is bringing me over, I will always contact them and say, listen, I've invited to this. It's on this. How do you feel about that? Is there something we can work out? Do we make it on a different topic? Do we make it, so that it's non-competitive? So these are really important things that I will tell you studio owners really appreciate. And they often tell me, no one has ever actually done that, and they feel hurt by it, but they don't say anything. So it's really something valuable to do, and it helps create strong relationships of trust.
I also just think it's kind of like being a good yogi to run your business like that.
Yeah. And I think it's not, it's not intent when we do those things. We just think, oh, well, I got asked anyway, and so I'll do it. And we don't think from the other person's point of view. And it's not that we shouldn't do it, but I think it's just about asking, and how would this feel and how would this work kind of thing.
Yeah. And like you said, not that that's the purpose, but one of the results is that it helps to build trust with the partner that you're working with. Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. And then they want to have you back because they know, okay, this person is kind of looking out for me, and they, they respect the fact that I've done all this work to bring them over, and they want to show honor to that. So it starts to create that good relationship. And it's much easier. So a lot of the trainings that I do is actually I go back to the same places year after year.
This was what I was going to ask you next. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's much easier to do that for you and for them rather than having to recreate the wheel every single time.
Yeah.
But it's all based on this kind of trust relationship where they know I'm not going to undercut them. I'm not going to sell them out for somebody else, who says, hey, well, we'd love to have you do a training, 3 minutes down the road, that kind of thing.
And I think that I know when I've been to, in fact, I can think of a time recently, I flew to a place to be with a teacher that I hadn't practiced with before. I was very excited about it. And when she showed up, she was obviously exhausted. She'd flown in as well. She was tired. It was very apparent. She talked about it. I was there all day. We finished up 90 minutes earlier than the scheduled finish time because she was done. And it was curious to me as a consumer to see this, and there were other people in the room who were pissed off that had all happened. So I think there's also something about the energy that you show up with. I can imagine that regardless of, like, I'm coming to, part of what I'm offering is me being lit up and present and well and leaving my stuff at the door and being consistent when I come back.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't have your expertise in marketing, but I can tell you that for me, this has been the single most important thing that's made a difference in my business, is that I understand that if I give everything every single time, and I plan I try, of course, things can happen and we can be exhausted, but to plan our time such that I give 100% no matter how many people are in front of me.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Give the highest quality that you can every single time. That becomes your calling card. That's what you're known for. And you don't, the word of mouth becomes your advertising because people talk about you. People talk, and now people talk on Facebook. So that is the most important thing. And it makes you respect yourself.
Yes.
Because every single time, no matter what, you've given everything you possibly could. It may not be perfect, but you gave whatever you could to the very best of your ability.
And what people take from it is theirs. Yeah.
Exactly. Then that's not my business, right?
Yes.
So, sometimes I'll feel like, I'll get down on myself or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, but did I do the best? And if the answer is yes, well, then I can't give any more than everything that I have at that time, right? And so I can let it go, let that judgment go, knowing that I gave everything I had, so it lets me feel complete as well.
Which is a teaching for classes, workshops, retreats, or just any interaction, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. So to me, that's the best antidote for self-judgment. Give everything you have. It's, it's that, I think it's in the Bhagavad Gita. You have the right to action, not the results of action.
Yes, the fruits, no fruits.
The fruits, yes. So, I don't have the right to results, but I can put in everything I have. I have the right to skillful action, to give everything I have, give my heart, give my soul, and then I let go because I've done everything I can.
So what about overgiving?
That's a good one. Yes. Well, I think that's really important. And it often comes from an identity that we've created or an idea that we have of who we should be. We think, oh, well, if I give some, well, then if I give more, well, then I'll be maybe even more appreciated or more liked or all those kinds of things.
Yes.
And it's about self-value. And I've found, just like money, if you give away too much of yourself, actually people value you less, you know. So you're a limited commodity. You know, you're not available for every email from morning to night, and you're not going to, you know, be able to give everything free, but that also adds value to what you have to offer. You know, nobody wants that, you know, people want something that's in limited, you know, that's hard to get. So you know, and I think it's something that we learn as we mature also in teaching. You know, I think in the beginning we want to be liked. And so we try to say, for time is that we've run over our own boundaries and then going, why did I do that? Why did I say yes? Or, you know, and then we just start to learn that if we explain in a very skillful way why we're doing what we're doing, it's usually just fine, you know?
Yes. Could we take it to the really practical level here too? Because for people that are considering doing full day workshops or traveling, things like what I see, people when they're starting out try and cram too much into that container of time because what if it's not enough? I've got to overstuff it with material, and people sort of just end up exhausted and saturated by the end. And so would you have any insight on, you teach people how to do this, so some insight on how do you know what's the right amount of content or the right amount of elements to put into a workshop on what's too much?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you're absolutely right. I still tell myself to this day, less is more.
Less is more.
Right. And it's just about trust. It's really about trusting. And it's totally fine to plan a lot of material just in case, but that doesn't mean that you're going to use it. So the general rule that I have is lay out the problem, lay out the solution. So lay out the problem, and then give a little example. How does this relate to them?
Yes.
And then how does yoga nidra, whatever it is that you're teaching, solve that problem? And then give them an experience of how yoga solves that problem. That's one segment. That could be a morning session. Then you do the same thing in the afternoon, right? And then you've got your day-long workshop.
This is golden. Golden. Thank you. Look, everybody, we've just got you. You can, and that's for a class. You could make that over a whole retreat, like that.
Yeah.
Hearing you say it, it's like, of course, but I hadn't thought of it until you. So it's pure gold. Thank you. Fantastic. So I'll just wait for our connection to catch up. Then if we could, this is so useful. I hope you tell me if you want to go in a different direction, but so useful. One of the things that I'm thinking then you come up with, you said if you're reaching out to studios, you'd like to start traveling, you start small, maybe it's an evening workshop or a lecture. One of the things that I see in your business is that you have some signature workshops, some signature trainings. How does one, I mean, I presume that you choose things that you're passionate about. How do you craft a suite of signature workshops, or even just getting started with one? How do you do that?
Yeah. So one of the things I found is in the beginning, I used to try to create a new workshop every time I traveled somewhere. And I quickly learned that that's not a good use of energy. So, you know, I have this little saying in my head, work smarter, not harder. So it's better to, you know, if there's an area of interest that you have, develop a workshop around it, like we just talked about, and then start. Every time you teach it, you will be able to refine it. You'll figure out, oh, that was too much information, but I could do that in a weekend workshop, but not in a day-long workshop. So you'll start to get it down to the point where it comes out smoothly. It's like butter. And you're also going to keep an eye out for which titles get me the most response.
Ooh, good tip.
So there are certain things that you'll see, like it could be the exact same workshop, but by wording it slightly differently, you get more people.
Yeah.
So an example would be, I teach, my first book was called Life Lessons, Love Lessons, and it's about relationships. But if you call it the Yoga of Relationships, which is a fine title, there's nothing wrong with it, but then it kind of implies that I have relationship problems, and that's why I'm coming to the workshop, right? So think about what your title is. But if you say, for example, what's your energy pattern in relationships?
Well, yes, you're right. I'm interested. I
Well,
want to know.
that doesn't, it's that switching the title actually created I mean, I got like double the people, right? So
Mm,
watch for the types of titles that that also work, and the type of content that you can start to refine over time. And then when you go to a studio, you can just basically give them a menu. You know, these are the types of
yes.
lectures that I offer. It can be, you know, honed into a half day or a full day. And then you can say, I can also take pieces of these to create something that's specially for you. But
Mm,
at least they have a set
yeah.
of things that you can choose from.
Yeah, I love that. And I know that, I mean, I travel about stalking my teacher, and I've
Mhm.
literally done the same 5-day workshop in different cities, and it's different to me. It could be the same content. I don't know. I don't go and check, but it feels like it's the same. And it feels different to me every time, and I get something different
Yeah,
from it every time, and I never feel bored, and I take down the same notes every time. Like, I think
yeah.
we can think that people will be bored, or that we need to, like you said, keep coming up with new stuff all the time. But there's something incredibly satisfying about doing the same workshop again and again,
Yeah,
repeating something.
yeah, and yeah, as a receiver and as the one who's leading it,
Yes,
and
yes.
as the one leading it, you start to get all these little insights and these little tiny subtleties every time that keeps it exciting. It's like
Mm,
refining a painting, right? So you
mm,
could draw 25 different paintings, or you could take one and refine it down to a masterpiece.
mm.
And that's how I see it,
I,
like an
I love
art,
it.
like a work of art.
Yes, and again, I imagine you'd get more skillful at the topic over time. You'd probably also be able to infuse it with the teachings you're receiving from the participants to make it,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely. And this is what's interesting is my recommendation to anybody who wants to write a book
Oh,
is to teach this. Like you said, they will show you what's missing. They will bring their insights. They will bring their personal examples, and they will enrich the teaching.
yes.
And then you bring it into your next teaching until it's this beautiful masterpiece. And then you write it into the form of a book or an article or whatever it is.
How many books have you written?
I've just written 2 so far. I'm working on the 3rd right now.
Can you tell us what the topic will be?
Yes. So the next one is going to be called The Anatomy of Energy.
Ooh. I'll start with the yoga nidra on it, but I'll anticipate that.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. I one day, comes back to your beginning point. Like, one day when I slow down enough to write something, I love the idea of writing something of length, but maybe I need more yoga
Yeah.
nidra in my life to slow down.
Yeah.
Um, one more topic, and then one more question, then we can change topics. But I imagine somewhere else where I see people fall down in starting to teach internationally or foster relationships with studios in other places is essentially crappy boundaries. Nothing's written down. It's all just, oh, we love each other. We're yogis. It's going to be okay. And then the
Yeah.
numbers or the Facebook ads budget or something, and suddenly we're in kind
Yeah.
of, what do we do now? So I love your point about don't be a rock star and make all of these ridiculous dressing room kind
Hmm.
of requests, but at the
Yeah.
same time we need to have a
Yeah.
structure in place to protect both parties feel safe. What would you say about
Absolutely.
boundaries like that?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a formal, well, okay, this is me. Maybe someone
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
disagree, but
yeah.
a formal contract, but at least in writing, right?
Okay.
So it's at least written on email where, you know, they agree to this, you agree to that, that the basics are somewhere in some kind of document or
Yes.
even if it's, and maybe you don't want this level of detail, but I recommend that when you're working out finances, that you get clear on the expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a cap to the expenses that you agree on, because usually whatever money, like, you know, so let's say that, you know, the workshop or whatever you did brought in $1,000, but there was $800 worth of expenses,
Uh-huh.
right? So you need to cap whatever that is, or that you agree that you both agree
Yes.
on what the expenses will be beforehand, right?
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
what's advantageous is if you do some kind of percentage split, then it's advantageous to the person who's hosting you to keep the expenses down. But not always. So that's why you have to develop, because they could say, well, I had all these other expenses, and, so you have to agree ahead of time that you're going to keep the expenses to a certain place.
Yes.
And what those expenses will be. Like, so for example, if your plane ticket is going to be included, or your travel expenses or your lodging, that should all be clarified up front.
Yeah.
And then what you can do as the person teaching is that you can ask for a minimum amount. So, my minimum is such and such, or 60-40 or 70-30, whichever is greater. Yes. So you're asking for a minimum amount, but then if the 70 or 60% is greater than your minimum amount, then you get that.
Which is good for both.
So it allows you
again. Yeah.
Yeah. So it allows you to benefit if there's more people, but it also lets you get a minimum if there's not enough. But I will say, again, about that relationship thing, if you want to build it over time, sometimes I will take less than my minimum after the agreement. They'll say, here's your check, and I'll say, you know what? I'm going to take less because I want you to feel good about this.
Oh, yeah, I love this. I have a colleague who hosted teachers, and by the end of it, he was out of pocket and it soured the relationship, I think. I don't think he minded the business expense, but the relationship soured, and I think that's sad when that happens.
Exactly. So if you want that relationship and you want it to last, then, you don't always, you may flex on that minimum a little bit if it's needed, just to help continue to foster that relationship.
And if in keeping with the idea of fostering a relationship, is it fair to expect then that maybe the profit would be smaller at the beginning while you're building, and then as you generate a reputation and a following in a certain place, it grows? So you can start where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that the reward will come, once that there are enough people for everybody, and then you can go back to your original agreement.
Yeah. What would you say about in teaching this? You say I have a suite of workshops and I teach them all over the world, but I imagine that there would be some, like, how do you adjust your teachings for different cultural situations? I imagine that's an art form as well.
It is, for sure. It is very interesting and fun. That's part of what makes it fun. And I think the thing to adjust to the most is how people ask questions or communicate. So, some cultures are very heady, and almost argumentative. And it's not because they don't like you or they don't like what you're teaching. It's because they consider that conversation.
Yes. Love it.
A common saying is like, well, if you just agreed on something, well, then you haven't talked enough, So to not take that personally and go, oh my God, they don't like my workshop. No, that's just their way of
love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And other societies or other cultures, they won't ask everybody else. So speak up in the group. But then if you put them in partners, they will talk away for 15, 20 minutes, So it's just kind of feeling out what the culture is and how it works, and not taking it personally. I think that's the big thing, is not automatically assuming it's something to do with you personally.
And I guess then being sensitive to it so that you can be flexible in the moment to meet people where they're at.
Exactly. So, for example, when I first started teaching in Iceland, I figured out pretty quickly that if I try to get people to share their experience in the group, not going to happen, not much. But if I say, okay, so now you're going to turn to somebody to your right or left, and you're going to take 5 minutes to talk about this, no problem. So it's just kind of adjusting that way.
I imagine, though, it's also about the content. I'm thinking I've done the same teaching with my teacher in Los Angeles and in Jakarta about the Bhagavad Gita. Fair to say, somewhat more secular, the version I got in Jakarta. But also, like, staying true to what it is that you're about, but also being mindful of what other people's beliefs is. Yoga is everything from this is my dogmatic fundamental religion through to this is something I do on the weekends at the gym. and everything in between.
Absolutely. You're so right, Amy. You really do want to be aware of who you're talking to and speaking a language that they can hear.
Oh, I love that.
Because the teachings are universally adaptable for everyone if brought in a language that's relatable to the person. So I don't want to be up here if they're down here, or if they're up here and I want to bring it to the level where they can hear it and appreciate it for what it is.
And in a way that retains the integrity of what it is that you're teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is also, I guess, then also remains respectful of the audience, that you're not dumbing it down to accommodate, that we don't want to be patronizing either in sharing information.
No, I mean, and I think it's just about a few of the words that we use. Like, for example, God can be replaced with being or source, just very small little languaging things that can be shifted to suddenly make it so much more accessible. And I'll often, if I forget, I'll say, well, if you're allergic to this word, then use that word. And I just make a joke of it.
I love that.
Out of it.
Bringing humor to it. Yeah. Yeah. That we're all in this soup together. Let's have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just really, really golden points in here. Thank you so much. So, I mean, we're talking about yoga, we're talking about business. What else would you like to bring into our conversation? This is so much wisdom to share. Where else where will we go next?
Well, I guess I'd just quickly like to swing back around to, when you're starting out, a lot of times you may not have a lot of people coming to your workshops or your classes. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. So often we come in, we expect, 20, 30 people are going to be in my classes, and I've decided to do this for a living and it's just going to work. And it doesn't always go that way. And that's okay. I see that in between time. It's like, in this day and age, maybe not so much in Australia, but in the States, it's this whole reality thing where everybody's famous and you can get rich quick and be famous quickly. And I'm going to be a yoga star and something like that. And then people get disillusioned when it doesn't happen, but it's okay, to take your time and put in your dues, deliver great teaching, and it will come over time if you continue to stay true to yourself and deliver powerful teachings. And in the meantime, you can use that in-between time to hone your craft.
Yes.
To really get good, so that when you get in front of ready to hit it, you are ready because you've spent all the time before then mastering your craft.
You mentioned when we were organizing the talk the importance of going deeper, and I think this is the point, isn't it? Yeah,
that's exactly it. Yeah. And also, the downtimes, this is the time to prepare your products. So, if you have CDs, if you have manuals, once you get really busy, you're not going to have time to work on all that stuff. So start doing it now while you're not so busy. Use the time that you have so that once the wave hits, you've got all your materials, all your products, everything's in place, ready to go.
I love that. I think this is true for people who are teaching 60-minute classes. I mean, and maybe also treasuring the people that do come. If it's a small number, then aren't we lucky? The gratitude for whoever comes is, rather than feeling that disappointment energy. Yeah.
No, and it's so true. And we all know at the end of the class, we're so happy, because it's like we all feel, that's why we're doing this, is if we could make a difference in one person's life, a true difference, oh my God, there's nothing more fulfilling in this world than that.
Yeah. See, someone said earlier to me today that when you see the moment of, it's just, so satisfying, don't you think?
It is. And it's so beautiful, like, how, a student will never forget the teacher who first woke them up to this path or to these teachings or to a yoga or whatever it is. They never forget them. They always remain in their heart. And, I always think of that as their blessing. It's you receive their blessing, that they remember you and hold you in their heart.
Who was that teacher for you?
Beautiful thing.
Who was the person that did that for you, Kamini? Do you think?
Yeah, I would say that my dad was one of those for sure.
Yeah.
And his teacher, who I considered to be my grandfather. And he was Bapuji, which means beloved father, beloved grandfather. And the thing I remember the most is just feeling unconditionally loved and received as I was, more than anything. Yeah. I
find it even more, there are all of these spiritual seekers out to find their guru, and I've got to go to the Himalaya and I'm going to find my guy and
yeah.
And I love your story about we had all of this at home, and that's why I decided that is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to go be a diplomat.
Yeah. We want what we don't have, right?
Yeah, I love it.
It's got to be something else. Yeah.
It can't be what I already have at home. Oh my goodness, we've just come full circle to sort of the point of yoga nidra. Like, you got it already. It's right here at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, you've shared so much great stuff with us today. I'm really, really grateful. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we finish up? Any parting words of wisdom?
Okay. Well, it was really interesting. The other day I was reading something about Vishnu and Lakshmi. And as you know, Vishnu and Lakshmi are the male and female principle of sustenance. And Vishnu is the sustainer of our inner consciousness. And what is said is that Lakshmi always follows Vishnu. Lakshmi is outer sustenance, meaning abundance. And I think it's a beautiful thing to think about, that if you always serve your inner consciousness first, meaning Vishnu, Lakshmi will always follow.
Oh, I love this. It's so beautiful. And I can see how it's just on so many levels. Like,
yeah.
The coming from a place of fullness in order to be of service, having the faith to manifest the reality. Like, I love that. How delightful. Oh, goosebumps. Thank you for that treasure. What a gem. That's fantastic.
No, good. I loved it. When I read it, I thought, I'm going to share this with Amy.
Absolutely beautiful. I've got the behind my computer monitor. I have Lakshmi there, but this is an important lesson for Amy. She needs Vishnu there as well. Reminder of the inside. So thank you again. Can you hold up your book one more time for us?
Absolutely.
Get it. And folks, you can get it really easily by clicking the button. Okay, it's going on my nerdy yoga teacher book club list for sure. Thank you again for being just such a delightful guest and so generous with all of your wisdom and experience. I know people will be scribbling down lots of notes about getting started with their own workshops and having great relationships as the foundation of successful businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Pleasure to be with you.